Hello folks, and welcome to another helping of Mr H's Hot Pot. You join me today in the rather picturesque little village of Hilldale in the borough of Chorley, which is in the county of Lancashire. And I've come today to have a look at a classic British icon which is instantly recognisable the world over. And here we have it. That classic British icon that disappeared from our streets almost 30 years ago is of course the red telephone box, or the K6 kiosk to give it its correct name. Instantly recognisable the world over, and it's as British as fish and chips, the Queen and the Union Jack flag. Now this style of telephone box really started to disappear from our streets in about 1985. When British Telecom, who'd taken over in 1981 from the GPO, who used to run the telephone system, decided they was going to phase them out and put a cheaper model there, because these cost a lot of money both to build and to maintain, because they're made from solid cast iron and I think they weigh about 3/4 of a tonne. So the K6 was originally commissioned in 1935 for George V's Silver Jubilee, and the GPO at the time decided to approach architect Sir Giles Gilbert Scott to design a new kiosk, and he decided that he wanted to have them painted silver originally, not the red that we see behind us, and in rural locations such as the one I'm stood in they would have been grey. But the GPO put the foot down and said no, it has to be in our livery, because they used to run them. And they ran them right up until, like I say, 1981, when it was split off and British Telecom was formed. Later on, British Telecom was sold, and that's when they decided to start removing this style of telephone box to sort of have a fresh start and a new image that it was British Telecom. I think it's a shame really, because the new kiosks, they're just not soundproof, they just have no style, they don't scream out Britishness, where this does. I don't think when he originally designed it he thought it would last as long as it has. Originally there was about 66,000 of these dotted all around the country, both in cities and in rural locations. That's now dwindled to about 11,000, 2,000 of which have now been granted Grade 2 status, which means that they're protected. Those kiosks though are always the ones that are near a Grade 2 listed building anyway. Right, then we're going to take a little look inside now, because I've not been inside one of these since about the 80s, and it cost about 10 pence back then to make a telephone call. I've no idea what it costs now, because I've not used one since the advent of one of these. I think that's what's been the death of the British phone box, basically. Not just the British Telecom changing the design, but the fact that we all have mobile phones now. Anyway, let's take a look inside and see what they look like, and it'll be a trip down memory lane for some of you out there. So we're about to step inside. There's the classic pull and that chrome handle. Let's take a little look inside, shall we? Judging from that there on the floor, it doesn't look like anyone's been in here for quite a while. The doors, I believe, used to be made out of teak, and there's those classic leather strap type hinges. There's a door closer on it, and the one thing I do like about these telephone boxes, you sort of can't hear the traffic outside as much as you can in the modern ones. Unfortunately, and I didn't notice this until I've got inside, there's a public notice stating that the kiosk is due for removal. However, that notice was issued on the 1st of the 9th, 16. We're now in 18 and it's not been removed yet. But it doesn't look like it's kept clean or anything like that. There's a lot of cobwebs in it, and it's looking a sorry state. It's not like the glory days when telephone boxes were spotless. Now also, as I said, it was 10 pence to make a call. They no longer accept coins. A lot of them, you know, you have to sort of reverse the charges. Probably because this one's due for removal. It's why they've not bothered having a collection on it. It is still connected. Don't know if you can just hear that there, the dialing tone. But it's such a shame. I was hoping to see how much it costs now. I think it's something like 60 pence. The return coins is sealed up, and it's basically ready for removal. Where this will end up, God only knows. Light at the top there, so it was illuminated at night, and you would be able to see these telephone signs. Now, one of the problems British Telecom faced was people used to use these as an ad hoc toilet, unfortunately. So they used to stink, and there was no way, you know, whatever liquid had been deposited in here could get out. And that's why they made the design where they raised the new telephone boxes off the ground. Anyway, we'll take a little look around the outside because there's one or two features that probably people don't know much about. And then we'll wrap this one up, I think. So here we are at the back of the telephone kiosk. Now these was always left blank, part of which was so that they could mount the telephone on the inside of the kiosk, and the other idea was so that the kiosk could be placed against a wall in major cities. At the bottom of the back here we have the foundry plate where this one was manufactured, and this one was made by W. McFarlane & Co Limited, Saracen Foundry in Glasgow. They probably had the contract to make the majority of these. Now underneath the telephone kiosk sign though, we've got the vents. There's one on this side and one on every other side. And then above that, there's the golden crown, which was George V's crown because it was manufactured to celebrate his silver jubilee. There'd be 8 panes of glass in them. They later changed over to perspex, I believe, once they started getting vandalised. Obviously in the 30s people didn't go around smashing phone boxes up. And here we are, back at the front. It's a shame that this one's going to be removed. It's another bit of heritage lost, really. So there we have it. That's a classic British icon, the K6 kiosk, or the red telephone box. Unfortunately, this one's due for removal. It's not been a grade 2 listed one. So it'll be another bit of history lost. And surprisingly, while I've been making this film, there's been a number of people coming around and having a little look at it. There's now somewhat of a curiosity on the British streets where once there was a familiar sight. Where this one will end up, I don't know. Maybe America, maybe it'll start a new life in a foreign country. But not to worry. I hope you've enjoyed this film. I've enjoyed making it, as I always do. So until the next time, it is bye-bye for now.